Okay, I had a lot of students who had questions on how to complete the Google Sheets activity. Now, as I'm going through this, I'll probably refer to it as Excel frequently. That's because Microsoft created Microsoft Excel, which is very, very, very similar to Google Sheets. Google Sheets is kind of based on Microsoft Excel. And pretty much everything you can do in Google Sheets, you can also do in Microsoft Excel. We're simply using Google Sheets because it's more accessible and we can use it from our Chromebooks. But it's essentially the same idea. You can do the same things. So you'll open up this sheet right here, these instructions that will say creating a worksheet. Now the first instructions is go to sheets.google.com and then perform the tasks below. You can also just start from your Google Drive and you'll create a new Google Sheet. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. Let me just I'm going to go to drive.google.com. I think this is actually maybe a better way to do it than what is stated in the instructions. You go to New, and then you create a Google Sheet. All right, once you create a Google Sheet, all you do is you type in the headers that you see in the Word document. So you'll have the first header is colleges. One moment. Colleges. Next column is tuition. And the next column is room and board. And then you can copy the rest off there. Now, on the rows, what you're going to put is you're going to first put the first college you want to study. This does not have to be the colleges I list in this tutorial. But the ones that you could do, but you'll want to try other ones as well, is, for example, Folsom Lake, if you're considering that. Maybe you're considering something else, like UC Davis or Sacramento State or possibly Stanford. These are just some examples. Your schools may be completely different than this list, and that, of course, is completely fine. So you'll put those down, and then you'll put the other rows that are listed. For example, we have average, we have maximum, we have minimum, and I believe that's it. So you'll type all of these in, and that will be the first step. You're just typing. Now, the next step is going to be researching each of these pieces of data and finding that information. So first of all, you're going to look for the tuition cost, you're going to look for room and board, you're going to look for books, and now other expenses is something that is really just your best guess. This really has to do with your lifestyle. If you're planning on having a car during college and you're planning on buying a new car, this might be as high as $500 a month multiplied by maybe the 10 months or so that you're in college, 8 to 10 months. And so that could be anywhere from, I doubt anybody would be less than $1,000, but it might be as high as $5,000 or $10,000, depending on what your lifestyle is. If you are somebody that buys a lot of new clothes, other expenses would be very high. If you drive a lot, other expenses would be very high. If you're riding a bicycle and you're relatively frugal, maybe you could get away with, as little as $2,000 in other expenses. That's going to be your choice what to put there. Okay, now for the important part. How do you do the formulas? Okay, so when we get to the formulas part, that's the part that people have probably the most challenge with, but it's also where you start to see the power of this tool and why it's so handy. And you can start to see, hey, this can help me in budgeting, this could help me in running a business, this could even help me in staying organized in classes. There's a whole bunch of things this can help with. So let's look at the first one. To implement or to insert a formula, all you do is you go up to this button up here that looks like a funny looking E. If you don't see this button, you'll see another button that says More. Click on More until you see this funny looking E. This actually is a symbol that is used to mean you're going to add up numbers, add up all of the numbers, okay? So that's why they have that, but that is the symbol they use to hide where all of the functions or formulas are. The first formula you're going to use is the formula you use for totals, and that is this formula called sum. So that's going to be summing up all of the numbers. So I'm going to click on sum, and then here's what is really cool about it. Essentially, you're giving the computer instructions, okay? So the computer's typed in sum, S-U-M, and it has parentheses. Okay, now within this parentheses, you're going to tell the computer all of the numbers you want it to add up. But there's a trick. It's really easy. All you have to do is click on the first box you want to add and drag across until you have all of the boxes you want to add up. Now, if you look right here, now you have, it says sum parentheses B2 colon E2. What that means is it means you want to take everything from cell B2. Now, if you look at this, this is like kind of like on a map. It's the address of this cell. It's in column B and row 2. That's why they call it B2. From everything from cell B2 to cell E2. Again, the address of this last one. Okay? So what you've done is you've told the computer add up or do the sum of everything from B2 to E2. So that will include this cell, this cell, this cell, and this cell. Once you correctly have given the computer these instructions, you just press enter and you will see suddenly the sum or the total will appear there. Now here's all you have to do. Here's something really handy. All you have to do is go over this little box on the bottom right and click on this box and drag this down. Now this is fascinating because what happened when I dragged that little tiny square in the bottom right, when I dragged it to all of the cells below it, what I'm essentially telling the computer is I say, whatever you did in this row, do the exact same thing in this row, and this row, and this row, all the way down to the bottom. Now, this is a very handy way to do it because the alternative might be adding up all of these numbers. That's a bad way to do it because look what's handy about this. If I put in a different number here, instead of 1,200, if I put in 1,000, then it will change the total. You'll see that this total was just updated to 13,000. Okay, now I could go back to what I had before. Now it's back to 13,200. Okay, so it makes everything live, and it makes it so that whenever I update any part of my data, it automatically updates the total. So it's very handy. Now, one thing I want to caution you on, all of these numbers are just numbers I made up. Okay, I'm going to expect you to not use the numbers that I have here, because these are not correct numbers. You need to research and find out the correct numbers and put those in here, okay? Now, another requirement that you're going to come across is to do the average. The average is exactly the same as the sum, except you select the average, obviously. Okay, so you select the average, and then you're going to select these 4 values above it, and then press enter. Okay, easy enough. There, now you have the average of the tuition of these made-up numbers of these 4 different colleges. You're going to have real numbers. I used made-up numbers for the sake of this demo. Then all you'll do is you'll again select the box in the bottom right, and you'll drag it across to where it applies to each of these columns. Then you'll do this. You'll do the same thing for max. You'll go over here. You guys have already got this figured out. You'll do the maximum of these 4 values, press enter, click here, drag it across. Do the same thing on minimum. This will select the minimum of these 4 values and tell you what it is. Go like this, press enter, and drag it across. Now, you might be saying, okay, why do I have to have a formula to tell me what the minimum number is? That's easy to see. Okay, I can already see that's 2,000 of these 4 numbers. All right, that's very useful. It's not very useful when you have only 4 values, but if you had an Excel sheet that had 1,000 entries, or sometimes they could literally have in the millions of entries, and if you had that, then that would be very valuable to be able to know very quickly what the minimum is. Okay, so now there's one more thing you'll want to do. The sheet, the instructions ask you to format the number. Let me show you what I'm doing again. They want you to format the numbers so that you have no decimals, okay? And so sometimes you'll have decimals, and this is how you do that. You just highlight all of the numbers, and this is what I want you to do, is go up to Format, Number, and then find this one right here, Currency Rounded, all right? Currency Rounded, you'll notice that it has commas, and it has no decimals. That's exactly what we want. It also adds the $sign, okay, which I think is helpful anyway. So we're going to put that in there. There you go. There's currency rounded. And there's a few other requirements that I didn't go over because I think you guys can figure them out. Actually, there is one more we do need to go over, though, and that is how to create a chart or a graph. Okay, here's what you do. You highlight the entire set of data. Actually, I'm going to correct that. You only need to highlight this part of your data, rows 1 to 5. Okay, don't highlight average, max, min. Okay, that won't make much sense in this graph. Now, once you have highlighted rows 1 to 5 all the way to the F column with total there, then you go over to this button. Okay, it says Insert Chart. If you don't see it, then click on More, and you should find a button that says Insert Chart. Click on that, and then you'll see what comes up. It comes up with these different types of charts. You have multiple types of bar graphs. This is the one, the second one is the one that makes the most sense for the type of data we're looking at. So I would double click on this. Actually, not double click, just click it once. Then go down here in the bottom left, it says Insert. Click on Insert. Okay, now you have this nice graph. Pull it down so it's not covering up your data. And then what you'll need to do is you'll need to change the title of this to, I'm not sure what the title should be. I think it was something like College Comparisons. You'll know what the actual title is. The way you change that title, let me show you this. You can just click on it like this, and it'll give you the option to type in another title. And then you press Enter. And now you've changed your title to College Comparisons. If you have any questions on this, I'm going to be back on Wednesday, and I'm happy to answer any questions. You can also feel free to send me an email. I try to get back to my emails as soon as possible, but for sure within 24 hours. But usually I can get back on those questions within about 2 hours when you send me an email. So please do send me an email if you have questions, but this at least gives you an idea, I think, of some of the more difficult aspects of doing this assignment. And I will look forward to seeing you guys again on Wednesday morning. Talk to you then. Bye.